Chapter 22, My Favorite Games. When it comes to playing games with friends or family, I usually decline. The exception is when I just want to be around the group socially. I'm not really a board game person. I sometimes feel bad because darling Pat is really a game person, and most all of my children have taken after her when it comes to sitting at a table and breaking out the games. However, there are actually 3 games that I absolutely love to play: chess, foosball, and basketball. I'll start my story with chess. My dad loved to play chess and was actually quite good at it. He taught me how to play the game when I was about 10 years old. I have fond memories of us playing late into the evening, sometimes having to set the board away so it would not be disturbed until we could resume the game. One evening in particular, I was sure I had checkmate with him. He studied and studied the board, not believing that I had actually beat him. We put the board somewhere safe and went to bed. In the morning, when I got up, I found the board on the dining room table with a note that read, "You have beat me." I remember how proud I was of myself. I actually felt quite accomplished. There are 3 people in my family that I also taught to play chess at about the age of 10. Lindsay, my youngest child, and my grandsons, Logan and Enoch. The below photo is a picture of Lindsay and her grandpa Jensen playing chess on a Sunday afternoon when he would often come to visit. Grandpa Jensen was a challenge for her, but she got to where they were pretty much on par with each other. And here are some pictures of Grandpa with Lindsay. Look at that hair. And Grandpa with, let me make sure I get that one. Okay, that's Enoch trying to learn and win. That's with Enoch. And then there's one with Grandpa and Logan, or Dad and Logan. Haha, my favorite opponent is my grandson Logan, who loves the game. I smile as I write this because he wants to beat me at the game legitimately one time. I was the same way with my dad. As mentioned in this story, it was a great moment when that happened, as it will be with Logan, and that day will come. When I was living in Italy, I purchased a beautiful chess set which included a marble board and marble players. It came with 2 matching hardwood chairs and a custom hardwood table that the marble board sat on. The whole setup was beautiful. Mom kind of had a problem with where to put it. The setup really took up a lot of space and would become the focal point of any room it was in. We moved it around to different places and eventually took it to Grandpa's office in Montana, where it never got used because I was the only chess player in the family besides my dad. In the end, I gave it as a gift to a business and Flathead Lake fishing partner. I had often thought about how I wish I still had it, but it would sit without use, just like my foosball table. So now let's talk about foosball. It was when I was living in Italy that I actually learned how to play foosball, and yes, there is definitely a development skill required to play the game right, as opposed to spinning all the player rods in hopes that you hit the ball, and it goes into the opposing player's goal. I can't stand playing with non-skilled spinners, as I call them. It is a very popular table game in Italy. Spinning the player rods actually penalizes you on a point. When I had transferred from the Portogruaro to the Ordezro NATO site for duty, I became friends with a couple of Italian military men that were always playing foosball right after lunch. The mess hall, as it was called in the military, was where everyone went to eat if you are living on base. I was living off base, but ate lunch there every day because of the convenience. There was a nice foosball table located in the foyer as we went in and out of the mess hall. I remember watching them play and was fascinated by how good they were at this new game that I had never played. Let me mention here that Italians love Americans and were always very friendly. One day as I was watching them, they asked me if I would like to take a turn and join them. I laughed and declined after telling them that I loved watching them, but had never really played. They immediately wanted to teach me. This became a daily thing for the next year until they completed their military service and returned home. They patiently taught me some methods and tricks, and I learned I quickly learned that it takes a lot of practice to get coordinated in the required movements to become good. If you have read my story on my military service, particularly in Italy, you noted how much time I had on my hands. Because of this, I was able to practice for hours at this game, improving on how to pass the ball and most particularly how trick shooting at the opponent's goal line. After a couple of months, I had become very good, and my Italian friends always included me in their after-lunch matches with others. To this day, I absolutely love the game still, although my speed and coordination have declined quite a bit. A fun story related to this game occurred after we were called to our first service mission. We were asked to manage the evening institute class at SLCC West Jordan facility. We helped the instructors with needed materials, registered, and helped students, providing security, and made sure that all the rooms and buildings in the building were locked up before leaving after everyone was gone. We managed the front office, which Darling just loved every aspect of that. As the evening wore on and things quieted down, guess what? I found a very nice foosball table in the students' break area. I began just practicing shots by myself until one evening a couple of returned missionary students that were there with me walked over, and one of them said, "Hey, Brother Jensen, how about a game?" His friend said, "Brother Jensen, my friend is awfully good, believe me." I smoked him. He never scored on our first set. Halfway through, his friend said, "Whoa, where'd you learn to play foosball?" Well, the word got around, and every night after classes, people showed up to play and watch. It was a great 2 years serving the Lord. Ha ha. Mom had some fun memories of that part of it. And there's a picture of their latest foosball table. Last but not least is my love for playing basketball. Ever since I can remember, I have loved playing basketball. When I was in shop my sophomore year, the shop teacher allowed me to build first one, then two backboards that had the authentic curved shape and the black square for layups. I sanded them forever and put several coats of varnish and varathane on them. Next, I mounted two NCAA regulation rims, which back then was a big deal. The rims in most stores were thin and you couldn't hang on them. I wanted the real thing for these backboards that I had constructed. I actually got an A on them from the shop teacher. My next challenge was to see if our neighbor Ray Simmons would let me hang them in the second story of his huge barn across the road. It would be so perfect because the ceiling or roof was plenty high and the floor was solid hardwood. Not like a regular gym, but so much better than cement. You would feel like you were in a gym. I asked Dad if he would talk to Ray for me, but just as I suspected, he told me that I should do the asking, which I finally got up the courage to do. I was nervous, but knocked on his door, and he had me come in. I then proceeded to tell him that what I had built in shop, and what I had in mind for his barn that hadn't been used for anything for years. Ray was such a nice person. Mom had him over every Christmas Eve after his wife passed away and always made him his favorite candy, homemade peanut brittle. Anyway, he agreed, but first wanted to see what they looked like and how I was going to hang them. A few days after asking, I showed him what I had in mind. We climbed up to the second floor where we would be hanging them and talked about it. He thought it was a great idea, and I went to work getting them hung. I believe it was my brother Gar who helped me the most, although he didn't particularly like the game. We got them hung and secured at exactly 10 feet. It would be impossible for me to count the hours I played ball up in that barn, by myself or with scores of friends. I always played church ball for about 3 years, which back then was very organized with tournaments that winning would eventually take you to Salt Lake City for the finals. We actually made it to Salt Lake City one year. Needless to say, I was excited when Todd and Lindsay loved the game as much as I did. I think it was Todd that taught Linz to jump shoot like a guy. To this day, I still go out on warm summer days and shoot a few hoops on Lindsay's court that we built for her. There's a picture that says, "From this view, you can still see the north backboard in the barn where we played."